was like a trucking game. And so you learned your geography by trucking around Canada and preparing half of us for our eventual careers.
Delivering meth.
Pretty much. Proud, noble tradition in Canada. Hold hands and close your eyes. It's midnight, and you're listening to the Ghost Story Guys. Welcome to the Ghost Story Guys. I'm Brennan Storr.
I'm Paul Bestel.
And this is the show where we talk about spooks, specters, and all the other things watching us from the shadows beyond the campfire. Some conversations only make sense after the sun has set, and this is most definitely one. Thanks for tuning in. This is episode number 222, and we're coming to you from that tiny mountain cabin you dream about, but can never quite reach. Paul Bestel, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you, my friend. Very well. Very well. We're all good here. Nice chilled out. I've been raiding second-hand bookshops today, buying posh cheese. It's all good, my friend.
Very cool. I have been revisiting my Mastodon records, and I wish this was for a, I wish this was for a good reason. But of course, Mastodon guitarist, or I guess recently former Mastodon guitarist Brent Hines, was killed in a motorcycle crash within the last week or so, and terrible thing, terrible tragedy. And he really was a truly talented guitarist and songwriter. And so I hadn't listened to Mastodon in years. So I went back and got the first 4 albums, Remission, Leviathan, Blood Mountain, and Crack the Sky. And I had all but forgotten how good they are. Truly, truly incredible stuff. And so that was a bittersweet, sort of a bittersweet rediscovering. But it kind of worked out because it created a bit of a synchronicity for this show, because the first time I saw Mastodon in concert was at GM Place in Vancouver in 2006. It was on the Unholy Alliance tour with Slayer, Lamb of God, Children of Bodom, and Thine Eyes Bleed. And of course, on this episode, we are telling stories of haunted Vancouver. This is one of our last Canadian episodes, and I have been really stoked for this one because obviously of all the cities we've covered on this show, I've spent the most time in Vancouver. And though I never lived there, it was always a pie in the sky. One day I will live in Vancouver. Never happened. And then I've more or less moved away from BC, and Vancouver has more or less moved out of my price range. But even so, I have a lot of enthusiasm for the city, a lot of love for it. And I've been very excited to share our spooky tales. And in yet another little bit of synchronicity, I learned something about Vancouver today, Paul.
Mm-hmm.
Now, everyone, when they talk about Vancouver, quite often they talk about Gastown. Mm-hmm. Gastown was the original settlement from which Vancouver was grown. And what I did not realize until I started researching the show, and I thought was hilarious, was that Gastown was named for a man, a guy they used to call Gassy Jack, because he never shut up. Gassy Jack Dayton was his name.
Gassy Jack.
Well, Gassy Jack from Hull.
Ah, well, that makes sense.
A long-winded Yorkshireman was the cause of Vancouver's original name, and I think I'm not terribly surprised by this. I was really, when I saw he was from Yorkshire, I thought, please be from Sheffield, and he wasn't. He was from Hull.
Yeah, well, that's probably why he moved.
The high C was better than Hull.
Yes, thankfully now we have better exports like Hannah John Kamen from Hull. Quite how the daughter of a model ended up living in Hull, I'm not sure, but there you have it.
The important thing is she left.
Yes, there's only so long you can cope with looking at the Humber Bridge.
It's like in Vancouver, they opened I can't remember which bridge it was now. I want to say the Port Mann Bridge, but when they built the new one, they didn't factor in ice buildup during the winter. Mm. So they opened it and then it froze. And all of a sudden, these ice bombs started falling onto the road, destroying traffic. Real, again, it's yet another synchronicity. Famous moments in bridges.
It's what connects us all around the world, bridges.
Literally and figuratively. We're very poetic here today on the Ghost Story Guys.
Yes, it's all about cheese.
Well, before we get to our stories of haunted Vancouver, we have to thank our patrons.
This one's for the patrons.
Patrons, we could not do what we do without you. So thank you. Thank you, thank you. For real, guys, everyone who downloads the Ghost Story Guys, you help make us who we are, but patrons, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube subscribers are the real MVPs. Without your support, we could not make this show. And while we'd like to thank every single one of you, we would especially like to thank our latest subscribers. They are
Janet Thornton,
Brenda,
Gabby G,
and Katie Hasselman. Again, thank you so much, guys. We genuinely, this wouldn't be possible without you. You allow us to make this show, to do all the things we do, and for that we are deeply grateful. And if you would like to get ad-free early release, bonus conversations between myself and Paul, extra spooky shows, in addition to shows like Host Adventures, our monthly live stream, and our Ghost Force shoutouts, click the link in the show notes or head to patreon.com/ghoststoryguys. Again, that's patreon.com/ghoststoryguys, or become a friend of the cabin on Apple Podcasts or YouTube. All right, so a couple more Vancouver facts before we get to the stories. Just to give folks a sense of the area. If you are from the States, if you don't know where Vancouver is, it's just north of Whatcom County in Washington State. The city itself is about 700,000 people. But if you bump it up to include the greater metro area, it goes to about 2.6 million. So that makes it the third largest metro area in Canada after Toronto and Montreal. It is, like I said, Vancouver is probably one of the most beautiful cities I've ever seen. It has gentrified over time and lost a lot of the personality that it used to have when I first started going there when I was a kid. Mm-hmm. But all the same, it is still a beautiful, beautiful city. And I always thought there was more under the hood. But when Luke and I started digging into this one, we couldn't actually find at first the stories I thought we'd find. I'd assumed there would be more. But once we changed up the approach a little bit, it was like it just sort of unfolded. And so, folks, I don't know if we're going to have time on this episode to get to everything that we found, which is itself only a fraction of the material out there. But I think by the time we're done, everyone's going to agree Vancouver is haunted as hell. So we're going to take a quick break. I'll be right back with the stories.
Camp Capilano. When I was growing up, I would spend some of my spring breaks at a cabin in North Van near Capilano College. We called the cabin Camp Capilano, and I would go there with the local community centre. I believe the cabin we went to was in the 1992 movie To Grandmother's House We Go. Anyways, I'd stayed at this cabin multiple times with this group of other kids and our leaders. We'd always slept together in the side of the cabin that had a boys' sign on the door. I never really thought anything of it, but the last year I ever went to that camp, we stayed over on the girls' side. I thought the cabin felt sad and strange to begin with, but for some reason sleeping on the side we left empty the previous years gave me anxiety. Eventually, it became time for everyone to go to sleep, and I was picked to be in a top bunk. I was pretty happy about it until about 3 a.m, when I woke up and found that the room was ice cold. I had a rather slippery old rubber-coated mattress, and my sleeping bag had decided to slide almost all the way off whilst I'd been asleep. I sat up to get back inside it, and as I sat all the way up, I saw a completely white little girl that looked nothing like the other kids I was staying with. She was standing over one of the leaders sleeping on the floor, just staring at her. I realised I was looking at a spirit of some kind. I quickly pulled my sleeping bag up and over my head as I lay back down. I knew what I saw wasn't just a dream and it was real, because I'd pinched myself several times to make sure of it. Some time fully passed, and I was fully enclosed inside my sleeping bag, and I decided it was time to check the room for the girl. She was gone, and so was the cold, but I didn't sleep too well after that. The next day, I mentioned this to my friends, and the leaders quickly caught wind of this and did everything to try and tell me it was just a dream. I knew this was so the other kids wouldn't be scared, but they were scared regardless. The creepy old cabin had a heated outdoor pool right beside it, and the groundskeeper was the lifeguard. Being the curious kid I am, I floated over the side he was sitting at and began asking him about if anybody had seen any ghosts on the property. He didn't hold back telling me that his daughter had seen a ghost a few times in the cabin and on the trails behind it. I asked him if it was an all-white little girl with long straight hair, and he gave me a weird look preceded by the, "How did you know that? That's exactly what my daughter said." I told him my experience, and he acted as if it was almost good luck that I'd seen the little girl. I honestly thought it was incredible, but our leaders quickly shut down that conversation too after hearing us. The same day, the leaders sat us down and tried to tell everyone that I'd just had a dream and not to listen to me or the owner of the cabin. I was obviously hurt, especially because they had just told me I was dreaming about it, but I knew what I saw and the feelings it produced in me. I left the camp a few days later with no other paranormal occurrences, but it left me with so many questions about that cabin.
Now, that sounds plenty scary, Paul. But you know what's even more scary about Capilano College? Dick's grave.
What?
There's a local legend of a cemetery near Capilano College where there's a grave that just says Dick on it. And supposedly it's, the story became it was haunted. And so people would, dare each other, like, how close can you come to Dick's grave at night? How much dick can you handle? And,
Oh, God.
And I actually found an account of someone trying to go there. The person says, when I was younger, the myth was that if you visited the graveyard during the night, especially on dark, foggy nights, he would be waiting for you if you got out of your vehicle. So Dick doesn't do drive-through. If you want Dick, you got to go in person. It's walk-in only.
Surprised by Dick.
According to this person, this is still a thing. I remember hearing about it years ago. But yes, Dick's grave, the scariest thing in leafy North Vancouver, aside from the rent and some of the stuff that one of my friends told me when he was a cop up there.
It's no wonder Bigfoot doesn't come that close.
Even Bigfoot knows to watch out for Dick.
Yeah, he says, no, bugger that. I'm just staying up at Harrison's Hot Springs instead.
I kind of love like the little microcosm that the camp represents, where like one person sees the truth and all the adults are just telling them, no, you're stupid. You're lying. Go to sleep. You're crazy.
What happened to that student called Jason? Nothing.
He went for a swim. He's fine.
He's not dead in the lake.
No. We were watching.
His mum doesn't work here either.
No, she seems nice.
Yes, she seems very lovely.
You ever watch her cut stuff up in the kitchen? No, she's crazy with that knife. I don't know why she's using a machete to chop vegetables. It seems weird.
Why is she singing while she does it?
I when I was a kid, there was that, I think it was a Nintendo game, Friday the 13th. And as I recall, Jason, it's a little bit like the Jaws Nintendo game, where Jason would sort of appear at random. And one of the only things that could keep him away from you is if you had the mother's sweater. And when I played that game as a kid, that seemed like the height of video game complexity. I thought this is the cool, yeah, and so I found an emulator for it a little while ago. This was a mistake. It's like trying to play the Ninja Turtles TMNT or the Ninja Turtles Nintendo game, and you're like, oh, this was never good. This was just impossibly hard.
Mm. Yes, like The Hobbit.
Was there a Hobbit game?
Yes, one of the earliest games released in the home computer boom of the early 80s, and was very famous for just being awkward as fuck all the time. You can see a door. Go through door. You can't. Use key. You don't have a key. Go through door. You can't.
So this is one of those things where you have to try and guess what words the developer was thinking. Like,
I don't fucking care. Fuck the door. Fuck this game.
Perambulate through door. Oh, no, that worked. Why that? It's like when we used to play Cross Country Canada. I don't know if you ever. I don't know. I can't imagine that would have been a thing for you guys. We used to play this in computers in school. back when there was a room you went to that had a bunch of computers. And
Yes.
it was like a trucking game. And so you learned your geography by trucking around Canada and preparing half of us for our eventual careers.
Delivering meth.
Pretty much. Proud, noble tradition in Canada.
Woohoo!
But I crashed my truck a number of times, as did a number of other kids, because in order to keep yourself on the road, you had to eat. So you had to go drive to restaurant. But most of us didn't know how to fucking spell restaurant. So we just never ate. And then you keep crashing the truck. And so Talia she was the one who taught me. She's one of my fellow classmates. She taught me and many of us how to spell restaurant. So thanks to Talia, a number of virtual truck drivers are not dead in digital ditches on 5 1/4-inch floppy disks.
Yeah, we weren't allowed computers at our school. They were only for the bottom tier.
Really?
Yeah, so kids, we were that generation that computers weren't coming in, even though we'd all got them at home, and we weren't allowed to use them because we even had a couple of kids try and pretend to be really thick so they could be put into the computer tier. And yeah, that's how it stayed all the way through school.
The computers are only for the dummies.
Yeah, that's exactly how it was.
What is the rationale there? Like, you're never going to succeed as a pretty lord boy, so or lord lady, or lady boy. That's not what I meant to say. But anyways, you're not going to succeed.
Not where I grew up.
Yeah, that's fair. You're not going to succeed as part of the aristocracy, so you better learn how to type, you drone.
Yeah, it was that kind of thing. If you went in and told the careers officer anything outside of working in retail or construction, they just laughed at you.
Right.
You're from Barnsley. Well, your job looks pretty easy, because all you do is tell people no.
That was essentially my high school career in Revelstoke. It's like, the witch's curse keeps us all in this foul town. You can't go anywhere. Go work at the sawmill, you clown.
Why have you tried working at the Silent Hill Resort?
Yeah, triangle heads looking for or pyramid heads looking for an understudy.
Needs help with the towels.
So, in addition to the haunted college, or sorry, not college, the haunted camp near the college,
Dick's grave,
and the big scary Dick's grave, I found this other story. It's from East Van, so it's Lord Selkirk Elementary, and supposedly a ghostly girl has been rumored to walk the halls there for about 100 years. And they call her Selkirk Sally. And now, of course, this is one of those articles that this is from the CBC, but every year some editor just picks up a shotgun, points it at his reporters and says, "Find worthless Halloween bullshit." As we read on our Haunted Delaware episode. But so this one is from 2015. It is. I don't even think it's got a byline on it, so that's how enthused they were about it. The early edition. But according to Marlon Shearer, who attended the school in the 1940s, and I assume they found this woman because it's their aunt or something, because otherwise that's a deep pull for an article that's 250 words. But yes, according to her, they see her floating about ever since the 40s. And the article goes on to say the school opened its doors in 1908 with 2-story wooden buildings. It was then expanded. And then in 1918, it was turned into a hospital. Because of the pandemic, obviously. And supposedly, now this is where it gets kind of funny. It never explains where the students come in. The article literally goes from, during the pandemic, it was turned into a hospital with a men's ward on one floor and a women's ward on another, and the basement was the morgue. Of the 100 patients, 22 passed away, said Daryl Kavanaugh, the school's principal. As the story goes, one of the students was named Sally, and she's one that haunts the school. Why? It was a hospital by then. Did no one tell her? She kept going? She was in your computer class? She's like, well, I guess a lot of dead folks at school, but no one told me not to come.
She's just driven a truck up.
It's got lifts. It's one of those giant trucks.
Perhaps she's looking for the ghost of Lord Selkirk. She wants revenge.
As well she should.
Yeah, I didn't know he had a connection with Vancouver.
Oh, that doesn't surprise. I mean, God, everything here is named Selkirk.
He's the guy that helped bring the Scots over.
How do you mean?
Lord Selkirk, I think, was the guy during the Highland clearances where we decided the best way to deal with the Scottish was just steal all their land. And if they didn't like that, we'd either kill them or put them in jail. And Lord Selkirk said, no, I don't think this is quite right, as anybody with half a brain would have said. And so he decided that the best thing to do was buy some land in Canada, and loads of Scots came over, beginning of the 19th century, I think it was.
Oh, well, I'm embarrassed.
All tied up with the Highland clearances and stuff, but I didn't know they'd got to Vancouver. I thought they were a bit nearer. Well, they've probably got all over the place because you've got a big connection with Scotland in Canada anyway. There's lots of Scottish Canadians and Canadian Scots and everything in between, isn't there? So
absolutely. I mean, there's a mountain range near Revelstoke called the Selkirks. Once upon a time, when you wanted to go from west to east, before there was the Rogers Pass that connected from Revelstoke to Golden, you used to have to go north around the Selkirk Mountains, and that road is which was closed long before I was born, but can still partially be found in the trees if you know where to look. I have had dreams of that road, but the way it looked back then, and I did not realize what I was dreaming until I saw pictures of it years later.
Yeah, there you are then. So 200 years on, his influence is still there.
Apparently so. The guy who said, hey, maybe we shouldn't murder all these people. At least one of those guys is being remembered. It's not someone like Captain Cook who's like, what we should do? Let's kill all those fucking people.
Look at these swarthy types. Yeah. Excuse me, sir. Do you live here? What? Right, kill them, lads.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Muskets at the ready. They're not very friendly here. Apparently they don't want to give us their land. The bastards. Shoot!
Better put up a statue. He seems like a good guy.
No, don't worry. They'll be pulling this down in 250 years, as they fucking should.
Funny you mention. We had a statue of Captain Cook in the Inner Harbor in Victoria, and a bunch of people finally tore the fucker down. And everyone, not everyone, but all the old idiots were just, I can't believe this. It's all woke. Blah, 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 blah. What, you don't like our statue of a mass murdering monster? What's wrong with you kids? You're too soft nowadays. The Green Man. I was living with my best friend at the time, in an old house that his parents had completely renovated about 2 years previously. His mom had moved to California, and his dad took a contract job in Kuwait, so I moved in for 10 months. I had noticed a few things in the first few weeks I was there, but I figured that they could have been reasonably explained. My friend's parents did not own a television, nor did we, being only 18 at the time. We hooked up an old computer monitor to a VCR that I had brought from my parents' place. Now, the monitor was old and displayed everything green. One night, I was at home by myself watching TV with the lights off in the living room when an old cedar chair I owned creaked the way it does when somebody sits in it. Completely surprised, I looked at the chair and saw the perfect silhouette, in green, of a person sitting in my chair. I jumped up and turned the lights on, and I could no longer see the silhouette, thinking my eyes had fooled me. I left the lights on and continued to watch TV, when about 2 minutes later there was a sound like someone was getting out of the chair. Well, my heart started pounding. I turned off the lights, and there was no silhouette. Later, I asked my friend if he'd ever had any odd experiences in the house. He refused to talk about it. It wasn't until about 3 years later, when he moved out, that he started telling me things. He told me about a time that when the renovations were still being done, he was playing drums in the unfinished part of the house and heard footsteps, louder than his drums, coming up the steps. He stopped playing and called out his dad and sister's names, but there was nobody there, not even in the finished section of the house. He also told me about a time when he was by himself in the house, and he took a shower. He said he shut the door, because he always shuts the door, and when he got out, the door was closed, but not latched. He was not positive that he latched it, but when he was looking in the mirror, and he saw the door open behind him, he did yell out. There was nobody home, and he claims there's no way the door would have opened like that. My friend's family no longer owns the house, but I would love to have the chance to live there again now that I'm a little bit more brave and a lot more curious. And so that one didn't have any specific Vancouver-specific information, but I thought the man in the mirror was kind of interesting. The guy with the opening door, I don't really give a shit. I don't think that's very interesting.
Yeah, very much so. I think the reflection's far more intriguing.
Yeah, it's one of the few good things I can say about the second Conjuring film. There's the scene where the guy is sitting in the chair, or the spirit sitting in the chair and scares the shit out of someone by screaming. And I think they see him reflected in the television. And it's, again, genuinely the only compelling part of that film.
Which is to say it's pure fiction. Yeah, brilliant.
No, that documentary about the Enfield poltergeist.
It's amazing what happens in 3 hours.
As I've mentioned many times, that I'm part of this box office chat where numbers nerds like me get together and we talk about, how movies have done, what they're doing. And there was one today just before we recorded the show, and they were talking about the upcoming Conjuring film. I was thinking that they were talking about how successful it's going to be. And it is going to be. They always are. But it pains me every time they release one of those fucking movies, because we have to listen to another 2 months of people talking about Ed and Lorraine Warren like they're superheroes and not a bunch of creeps like they were in real life.
Yes, it is. As we realize every day, we live in a post-truth world, and the Warrens' continued elevation is part of that in the paranormal field.
And so before I've got some stuff from famous Vancouver haunts. And I think that's one of the things that kind of sets Vancouver apart from the places we've been covering the last couple episodes, is that it actually has a really storied history of haunting. But before we get there, though, you mentioned something on the last segment that I thought it would be fun to talk a little bit more about, which is the prevalence of Bigfoot sightings at Harrison Hot Springs, just outside of Vancouver.
Yes.
So do you mind telling folks about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's known. Most of the residents in that particular area who have spoken are very open about the fact that Sasquatch is there and keeping an eye on things, and they seem to be quite happy with them. They seem to say that, that's always been there. And obviously the indigenous peoples, I think it's the Squamish tribe from that particular region. Obviously they've always discussed about it. They have a festival around there as well. And I think on average they get about 20 sightings a year around there. So it's clearly a well-established location. I mean, some people claim that the Sasquatch love coming there because they enjoy the geothermal pools, a bit like the monkeys do in Japan.
Oh, okay.
They like to use them to bathe and clean themselves in, and it seems to attract them as much as it does humans. So it's goes back, as long as people have lived in that particular area, there's always been stories of Sasquatch. So even they like a spa weekend.
And who doesn't? And is it famed researcher John Green? He lived there for a long time, didn't he?
Yeah. But it's one of the reasons John Green moved there.
Oh, I always assumed he was from there.
I think he's from that particular area, but he stayed there because of the locality in his that opinion. I think Grover Krantz also said it was the best place. You were more likely to have an encounter of some description in that location than anywhere else in Canada, especially on the west.
Interesting. And that extends to, I seem to recall you telling me there were sightings in and around Agassiz as well.
Yes. Yeah, there's been a few unnerving sightings in and around there. There's another place. There's a very famous one up on Clayoquot Sound over on the island.
Sound.
Clayoquot, yeah. There's a very famous sighting on there from about 15 years ago where a guy basically shit himself because he wasn't expecting Sasquatch to turn up and interrupt his morning camping.
That'll do it.
So, yes, I read an interview with that guy about 10 years ago saying, he used to think it was all bollocks till it happened to him, and now he doesn't understand why people don't believe it.
Interesting.
So, British Columbia is Bigfoot Central anyway for Sasquatch, Bigfoot reports.
100%. Yeah. I think
time.
Our next episode will probably be BC, like wider BC, and so it'd be great to do some more squatching.
Oh yeah, there's some rather hair-raising encounters from that particular province.
The reason I asked about Agassiz is I actually almost had a real bad time with a car in Agassiz. I don't know if I've ever mentioned this to you, but when I was much younger, a bunch of us were going to Vancouver for a concert. I don't remember which it was, but we noticed the car started to shimmy a little bit, and we weren't sure. My cousin was driving. I didn't drive back then, so my cousin was driving, and I think it was his car, and he said something's up with the car. It's doing something stupid. So we pulled into a garage in Agassiz, and the fella said, "Look, man," the mechanic said, "Yeah, you almost lost your wheel. There's something wrong with your bearings." He said, I can fix it. You know, it won't take long, but I'm glad you came in. He said, because you would have lost it. You might have lost a wheel. And that obviously at highway speed would have gone bad for everybody. And so, of course, we're stressing about it. We're stressing like, you know, we don't have a ton of money. We're really young. And we said, like, what's this going to cost? And the guy said, just fuck. He said, $10 for the coffee can. Don't worry about it. And we were just stunned, right? So we were really thrilled. But then his boss came over, looks at it and goes, oh yeah, we're going to have to get some parts. That's going to be real expensive. And then his boss laughed and he fixed it. And the guy comes out and he goes like, just give me $10 and get the fuck out of here. And so whoever you are, a mechanic in Agassiz 20 years ago, you saved what could have been a potentially ruinous early end to a fabulous concert trip. I think that might have been a Dropkick Murphys show in 2005 that we were down for. But yeah, so I almost no Bigfoots in Agassiz, but I almost lost a tire.
Maybe that's what they wanted.
His Bigfoot's out there just fucking with our tires, waiting for the come off.
Yeah, like Zodiac.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Here it comes. I love them from the city.
Yeah, very, very tender.
The sea air gives them a nice salty taste.
All right, and so I have, like I said, I have this collection of Vancouver haunts, and again, there are a number of them. This is from therebeghosts.com. There's the Jailer's Mews in Gastown, the Hotel Europe, the Hotel Vancouver, which we'll be talking about shortly, the Old Spaghetti Factory, the Vancouver Art Gallery, Vancouver Police Museum, and Waterfront Station. And again, I don't think we'll have time for all of these on the show, but the one I will mention is, or the one I will talk about is the stories from the Old Spaghetti Factory in Gastown. And of course, Old Spaghetti Factory is a chain of Italian restaurants here. I don't know if you guys have them over there.
No.
When you don't know any better, they seem like they're classy.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah. When we first moved to Victoria, they're always in very historic old buildings. So the one in Victoria is in the, I think Crystal Gardens, or what used to be Crystal Gardens. And so when we first came here, Nick and I as tourists, we went there a couple times because, it's all, they got like faux stained glass booths and things like this. And so you're very impressed until you know better. And then you realize there's better Italian food downtown.
Yeah, it's like Pizza Express.
All right, so there are four tales there's four little bits from the Old Spaghetti Factory here. 1. The first sighting involves a tram conductor from the number 53 old trolley car that patrons think of as just part of the decor. Some say the conductor died in an underground collision beneath a restaurant, while others believe his ghost appeared when the tram was installed within the restaurant. Either way, many say that the Old Spaghetti Factory staffers have spotted the ghost in full uniform inside the tram after the restaurant empties out in the evening.
Well, that's rather specific, isn't it?
And I should mention that the Old Spaghetti Factory is in what used to be the headquarters of a grocery wholesaler. So it's quite a big location. 2 says, the second ghost is, quote, a little red man with flaming auburn hair and a penchant for mischief. Rumor has it that he goes around the kitchen whispering to staffers and calling them by name. So, the troublesome ginger ghost.
Yeah, there's plenty of them around.
3. The third ghost was spotted by a waitress who saw a young boy running around the restaurant during her closing shift. She was so scared by the incident that she resigned on the spot. The same spirit has also been seen bending cutlery with Uri Geller.
I didn't know he was that short.
He's on the run from somebody. He's dwarfing it up. He's walking around in on with the shoes on his knees.
Toulouse-Lautrec.
Or like Gary Oldman in that movie where he plays a little person, Tiptoes. The movie that they have Peter Dinklage in it, but they have him as a supporting character, pretending to be French, I might add, while Gary Oldman is walking around on his knees playing the main character. And Matthew McConaughey and Kate Beckinsale. What the fuck was happening?
Perhaps he was trying to recapture the magic of his Unsolved Mysteries appearance.
All right, and last, the fourth ghost sighting was of a young girl sitting at the table near the front of the restaurant and holding a balloon. A friend of the general manager claimed to have engaged in a long conversation with the ghost, but when someone else approached the table, she disappeared. I want to know what kind of lengthy conversation you can have with a child holding a balloon. So what's new? Well, penny farthings seem neat. That's weird.
The news from Germany sounds awfully worrying, doesn't it? This new chancellor they've got seems to be taking them back to the Weimar Republic era.
Pardon me, I've just got to cough this blood into a lace handkerchief. And then just a string of racial slurs. About Italians.
Our next story was sent in 2018 from a listener in the Vancouver area, and it's called In Dreams. Regarding dreams, I've never actually told anyone this before because I'm still trying to figure out myself, and I've yet to decide what's going on. I'm also sure that people would laugh, so anonymity helps. I'll start off by explaining my dreams, and then what I think it might be, and I'd love to hear your thoughts if you have any. If anything, I would call these dreams precognitive, or an advanced déjà vu. I know they're not déjà vu, though, because I can always remember the actual dream, and usually the waking moments of me remembering the dream and knowing what it is. So I don't remember when I first started having these dreams. However, I do remember the first one I had of these particular sort. In the dream, everything was as it was in the waking world. It even felt oddly like I was sleeping or in a daze. I was standing by our rabbit cage and looking at my rabbits just doing their thing. Then something happened that was weird. I can't exactly remember what one thing was it that I noticed that was odd, but like one of the rabbits ran in a certain way or a car pulled up. It was something only I sort of noticed, though. This was a really common theme with these dreams. A couple of days to a week later it happened. I was standing outside by the rabbit cage with the same people, the same weather, and the same clothing. It was the same scene. I brushed it off as déjà vu, but I never really forgot that moment. Ever since then, I get these dreams on the regular. There's never really any schedule or any certain variables that I can connect to these dreams. The closest thing, I think, that I've been able to link to them is that the volume of these dreams usually increases right around when my good old Aunt Flo comes rolling into town. But these dreams are always the same. It's something mundane. Being at work, driving with friends at night, cooking, shopping, hiking, the like. A lot of the times these dreams occur in scenes I've never been in before, certain places at certain times of day, or even places I've yet to visit. Once I became more aware and more curious of this dream, I started challenging it, so to speak. Like I had mentioned in the rabbit story, the scene all plays out exactly, except for one moment at the end, and I can never really remember what the end moment is. When I would recognise in my waking life that one of these dreams was playing out, I would stop and wait for this moment to happen, but it never did. I've gone so far as to pull over a car full of people because something's about to happen, but it never did. My most recent experience was, I was at work doing some paperwork, certain type of music was playing, and all of a sudden I just got this weird feeling, and I knew it was a dream playing out. I didn't know what the last moment was, but when I thought about it, I thought it could be something bad or upsetting. I can't really explain why, I just got that feeling, like a customer was about to come up and start complaining, or my boss was going to call me into the office, etc. But it never came. And so that's the waking part. As for the dream part, it would be the morning I wake up, not during the dream, that I would realise what happened. It just feels different, and I can always remember that dream, but again never the end. I would then go on about my day and forget about it, and usually, within a couple of weeks, the dream played out. I really don't know what to think of these dreams. For the longest time I thought they were just some bogus form of precognition that never really panned out right, or that because I knew what was going to happen, I'd somehow changed it. Over the last few months, however, though, my thoughts have changed, or warped, I guess. I've never been one for those breaks in the matrix type theories, which is probably going to make this harder. But I'm wondering if maybe in another world or dimension, I'm going through whatever is at the end of the dream. Like these are the moments in our lives that are so parallel with each other that I'm able to peek into the other me's life. The other theory is the reliving the same life theory. I'm not sure of the technical name for it, but basically the theory is that we relive this life until we get it right, and that these dreams are my self's warning of what not to do. I'm really unsure as to what's going on with this, and each theory I have for myself is even more bizarre than the next. I'm all for reincarnation, but the whole other dimensions thing I think is, not stupid, because I try not to put other people's beliefs down, but it is kind of stupid. Let me know what you think.
Like Paul said, this was an email. I did a search through all our back catalog, or our backlog of email, to see if there was anything from Vancouver I'd missed. And yeah, this was one from, I want to say, October 2018. But thank you for that if you're still listening. And, this actually reminds me of that article I sent you, that Popular Mechanics article, where they really are becoming more comfortable suggesting that there is something about consciousness which can maybe unstick itself in time, or when it is sort of not, when you're asleep and it's not tethered as rigidly to what you're seeing in front of you, that it may have some potential to view other points in, I don't want to say timeline, because they're sort of suggesting that maybe time isn't linear, but that you can see outside of your current moment. And that's kind of what you're picking up on. And I kind of wonder if that's what driving. Folks, you're going to hear some beeps, and that is because this writer asked to be anonymous, and I very cleverly forgot that for a moment. So yeah, please ignore the beeps. So I do wonder if this person has just got some, like, again, their sleeping mind is somehow even less moored, is more able to kind of go further and to see more of sort of this weird, the weird web that some folks are starting to suggest time might be.
Yeah, well, it's certainly a concept that's gaining more traction, I think. And as with anything, we always have to realise that we know very little about the brain and consciousness. We've not been studying it for any great period of time. And so our knowledge is limited by the length of time that we've been trying to understand that. And therefore, we're still a long way off. Obviously, we know a lot more than we did, say, 100 years ago, but we're nowhere close to understanding it. I mean, a prime example of this is, I forgot the name of the chap, but there was a guy, I think he lived in France, and he went to the doctors a few years ago complaining of dizzy spells and not feeling too well. And so they checked him out, seemed perfectly healthy, so they sent him in for a CAT scan. And when they got the results back, what they realised was that as in virtually 95% of his cavity inside his head was empty. He had no brain. And they discovered that as a child, he developed water on the brain, and he had a tap fitted to drain it. But that was removed in his late teens because they thought that the condition had rectified itself. But clearly it hadn't. And so when they did it, his entire brain had basically been pushed around the inside of his skull. Oh. So his brain is like a pancake, all inside him. And they don't understand how he's able to function, because essentially he's got 5% brain capacity. But, I mean, he's not a genius, but he's also not mentally stunted in that regard. He's got average IQ, apparently, which I think was 82 is the average. And so he's in his late 40s, early 50s, and he technically shouldn't be able to function as a normal human being, but he can. So if there's people like that wandering about that baffle science even in the recent years, then it shows you that we know next to nothing. I mean, it's like people who get struck by lightning and it rewires their brains. Or people that have traumatic head injuries suddenly become extremely talented, or they call them idiot savant, where they have very poor they have very weird like social interaction skills, or they seem quite reclusive, but they're like incredible concert pianists and can write symphonies and all kinds of things. And there's not many people that have that kind of ability, or they suddenly become polyglots or something after having a head injury or a severe trauma to the brain.
I think that's acquired savant.
That's it, acquired savant, that's it. So yeah, it's mind-blowing, really, literally.
Yeah.
And so it just shows you that we know so little still, that there are things and people that we come across whose brains do not work in the normal capacity, and yet it doesn't seem to affect them. If anything, It makes them even more special. So I would not be surprised if consciousness can untether itself. And especially now we've got the parallel dimension theories gaining traction in a lot of things. Why not?
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that.
Lots of people are talking about that now, like Michio Kaku and the like. The potential that
of course, yeah.
They're running parallel, and this is creating that kind of additional cross-pollination. But then again, it could be one of those explanations that people are grasping for to try and explain anything weird.
Yeah, that's very true. We love to put a narrative on things. That's kind of the nature of who we are as people. So again, thank you, listener, for sending that in, and I hope you're still listening, and that you now 7 years later enjoy hearing your story on the show. And if things have changed or involved, let us know. ghoststoryguys@gmail.com.
And did you have a dream about us doing this?
Oh, now that would be Inception. How many fingers am I holding up?
7.
Damn, you're good. Listener, if you get that one right, you will blow my mind. But one of the other kind of fun things I found while researching this episode was that there was a thread on places in Vancouver that make people feel unsettled. Now, of course, whenever you put up a post like this, no matter the forum, there's always some dipshit who's like, City Hall, because they make so many bad decisions, Again, so once you scroll past about 6 pages of that, you find some interesting stuff. And so there's a couple places I've picked out, but there's one in particular that it's probably my favorite one. And so I put it right top in the script. This person says, the road between Home Depot and VCC Clark Station. It's a no man's land. Now, I read that and I thought, wait, I think I know where that is. And so I went back through my photo archive. And if you look in the script, there is a photo of exactly that road that person is talking about, because I happened to stumble upon it in 2019 while out for a drive with my cousin late at night. And if you look at that photo, you will see true menace.
Still, I would expect to see in Silent Hill.
Yes, exactly. And again, VCC Clark is basically like it's a SkyTrain station. That's, of course, Vancouver's metro is the SkyTrain. So it's VCC Clark Station, and on the other side is a Home Depot, both very brightly lit, but somehow you've got this narrow corridor of darkness between them. And what's fascinating is it's not an easy thing to get to by accident. But my cousin and I, when you put the two of us together, we end up in the dumbest possible places for anyone who's concerned about their spiritual health. Like, I'm bad enough on my own, but you put me and Mike together, and Jesus, you should tie a belt to us just so you know where we are, so we don't get up to too much trouble. And we were just taking lefts and rights, and I was like, let's go back through here, through this parking lot, and then we came up to that place. I think Mike was driving at that point, and we stopped just long enough for me to take that photo, and I thought, let's get the fuck out of here. And it looks like I'm not the only person who feels that way.
The Fairmont. I don't believe in ghosts, but I had one incident in my life where I felt I'd really experienced a ghostly encounter at the Fairmont Hotel in Vancouver 10 years ago during New Year's Eve. There was a group of us, and we'd booked 2 rooms. Initially, when we arrived at the hotel, the elevator took us from the basement instead of our floor. The basement was where all the conference rooms were, and it was pitch dark. When we tried to press the floor our room was on, it wouldn't work. So there we were, with the doors wide open, staring into this large, dark, empty floor. It was really creepy, but we didn't think much of it. Now, this incident to this day I can't explain. We'd booked 2 rooms facing each other at the end of the floor. My friend and I went up to the room to grab his wallet before we headed out to our New Year's Eve party. We took the elevator to our floor, just the 2 of us, and nothing unusual happened until we exited the elevator and started walking towards our room. As we were walking, we both heard loud footsteps which eventually turned into what sounded like someone running behind us at a high rate of speed. We both turned around but didn't see anyone, so we started walking again. This time the footsteps were now coming towards us, so we stopped and looked. Still nothing. Now here's the creepy part. Our rooms were the last rooms on the floor, and we were halfway down the hallway, so there were our rooms plus 2 more rooms. We literally froze because here we are hearing footsteps, but there's no one in front, or even behind us. As we were standing, the footsteps turned again to appear what sounded like someone running, and then all of a sudden stopped. We heard a door slam really loud. This whole time we didn't see a door open, and we didn't see anyone go in or leave a room, plus the room doors were impossible to slam, because like most hotels, they're soft close. There's no logical explanation for what we experienced that night. We told the staff the next morning, and they said a lot of bizarre things happen in the hotel, and some people just write it off, but others believe it's the supernatural.
So I've inserted a photo of the Fairmont for Paul, and then a beautiful old hotel. But if it looks like it may as well stamp haunted on it, right? It looks like the Zool is waiting upstairs.
That would not be amiss from appearing in a Tim Burton Batman film.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Max, what's his name? Christopher Walken's throwing someone out the window.
Yes.
It is one of Vancouver's most famously haunted buildings. So that these folks experienced this was no surprise. And funny enough, I like fancy hotels. I can't afford them very often, but I love a fancy hotel. And so for my 30th birthday, Nick's family pitched in some cash so I could stay at a fancy hotel for a night. And so Nick didn't tell me which one it was. She led me on this walk through the lobbies of a bunch of different hotels in Vancouver until we arrived at the one it was. But I remember the first place she took me before I realized what we were doing was the Fairmont. And I've always disliked being in that lobby. Again, I love a fancy hotel, but that Hotel Vancouver, I've never liked being in there. And so when she walked me through that lobby before I realized we were kind of going on a bit of a tour, I actually got kind of scared because I'm like, I don't want to fucking stay here. I don't know why, because I was not into ghost shit back then. I just knew I did not want to be staying in this place. And I'm not the only one. I've pulled up a bunch of articles here. So this first one is from the Vancouver Sun. If you want to click the link there, Paul, it's kind of funny because they show the photo. This is a piece of photographic, quote, evidence. And this is, again, I think this is dated May 27th, 2017. So this isn't the Halloween, dear God, you got to print something spooky in the paper no matter how ridiculous it is. But it's still pretty ridiculous. The article says, the lady in red is one of Vancouver's most famous ghosts. According to legend, she haunts the historic Fairmont Hotel Vancouver at 900 West Georgia Street, built in 1939, walking the top floors in her elegant red gown, occasionally stopping at the windows to stare wistfully out at the city. Now, a local elevator mechanic claims to have taken her picture. Vancouver's Scott Graham says he was working on a top floor at private residences at Hotel Georgia, just around the corner from the Fairmont, when he decided to take a cell phone photo of the historic hotel where he also does work. That's when he noticed a red dot in one of the topmost windows and decided to zoom in for a closer look. There she is, maybe. Let's zoom in further still. And folks, again, I'm going to put this link in the show notes. This must have been a slow news day, or this journalist lost a bet, because there is just red in one of the windows. And you have to zoom in so far that it would stretch credulity even in a Jason Bourne film to get anything from this image. Paul, I got to know what you think of this one.
It could be absolutely anything,
yes.
Matt.
100%.
My first question would be, having read the article, that floor was closed off to residents. So what colour jackets were the workmen wearing?
An excellent question. Yep, an excellent question.
You have to remove all the possible explanations before you go, oh, well, it's clearly a ghost. I don't understand why people aren't buying newspapers anymore.
And folks, make sure to check out that link, because in addition to, the nonsense photo of the ghost, there's just a couple really cool vintage photos of both Vancouver, in the 1930s, and just the inside of the hotel, which is very luxurious. Now, again, it is a legitimately haunted place, and I found a couple other accounts. One says, the most unsettled I've been was on a mechanical maintenance/kitchen floor of the Fairmont Hotel Vancouver. It was a ways up the structure, I don't know how high up, but we were closer to the top floor than the ground. One of the hallways, I remember, had artwork hung up on it, despite being a maintenance floor. There was also a room that stored many old paintings. There was also a room with dozens and dozens of rolled-up carpets. The kitchen was odd. It looked ancient, including the appliances, but there were stacks and stacks of plates and cutlery and cups perfectly stored. I don't know what it was about that floor, but I didn't want to be up there alone when I was there. I always tried to be with my coworkers when I was accessing that level. Someone else also weighed in, and they said, agreed, this is the first place that came to mind for me. I did some electrical renovation work on a few floors a number of years back. I got the same creepy vibes as you from that place. I would never stay a single night there, even if you paid me. I'll never even forget the smell of that place. According to therebeghosts.com, which also mentions the Hotel Vancouver, they mention the lady in red. They also mention the disembodied footsteps and strange sounds, and they go so far as to say they have actually been recorded by security cameras in a stairwell near the 14th floor, which is kind of interesting.
That reminds me, I think I might have seen something. I might have seen that.
Oh, really?
Somewhere on something. I remember seeing some footage of a hotel where they'd recorded footsteps.
Oh, interesting. I mean, it might have been Creepy Canada. I have to imagine it popped up on there a few times.
It might be. I remember discovering that weird series about Canadian hauntings on Prime a few years ago that just randomly appeared on my watch list. There's about 8 episodes, I think, including somebody lying about a bus crash.
Oh, really?
One of the gravity hills. You've got a gravity hill in Canada.
We've got a few of them, yeah.
Yeah, and one of them's tied to the same as all the others, a bus crash involving children. And I was thinking, come on. You can't just spew bollocks out this day and age. You can either tell us the story and did it happen? Because I'm telling you now, that would be front page newspaper in every newspaper in the region for weeks if that happened. And you have no proof. You can't just say, allegedly a school bus crash. Well, I'm sorry, that means absolutely nothing. I've heard that story in 7 or 8 different places in America.
When these things happen, there are records of these things. Like a school bus crash. There was a year, I don't remember when it happened anymore, but there was a Greyhound bus crash outside of Revelstoke up on the Eastern Highway. So near the snow sheds out towards Golden, there was a very serious bus crash. Folks, like the hospital was overwhelmed. These are when these things happen, they fucking happen and you notice. Like a bus doesn't crash and people go, sneeze and then move on. Like this is something that leaves a mark on a community for years.
Definitely. You can't just kind of, especially in this day and age, you can't make a statement like that and just not prove it. We're past that point. I mean, like you were saying, some of the stuff they say about, we think the lady in red was such and such, and this is why she haunts the thing. Well, you can prove that. You've told us when it's supposed to have happened and where it's happened. You can't tell me that the Canadian Newspaper Archive doesn't cover if somebody gets killed in a head-on smash in Vancouver.
Well, we could have looked it up. We didn't want to.
Yeah, it's that kind of thing. Yeah, it's probably true, but I haven't checked.
Quality journalism.
It's not like you work for a newspaper that's got an archive, is it, Chuck? Why would you get your hands dirty by going down to the archive?
It's just so much work. It's just ghost shit. Who cares?
Oh, I'm supposed to be at the cocktail bar at 4.
Yeah, now that I believe.
I make hors d'oeuvres.
I remember walking into a cocktail bar in Victoria, and there was these dudes sitting there. There's like big fat dude. He just looked rough, and there was a couple other guys like him. And I was talking to a friend of mine who used to be a newspaper editor, and he goes, "Oh yeah, that's where a lot of the journalists go drink after work." Like big drunken bears.
Burnt out men.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of buses, was it you who told me about the Vancouver bus hysteria in 2004?
No. Tell me more.
Okay, so you know the story of the mad gasser of Mattoon?
Yes.
Okay, so, cool. So in 2004, I think it was. Let me just double check here. Yeah, it was. There was a similar case on a bus in the Vancouver area. And now this article comes from May 28th of that year. A leading epidemiologist at the University of British Columbia says a suspected poisoning on a Vancouver bus earlier this year appears to be a case of mass hysteria. Dr. Richard Matthias said Friday that it's very possible there was never any toxic or noxious substance on the bus where several people became ill, and he said the incident is almost a textbook case of mass anxiety. Nausea, vomiting, all those kinds of things are associated with this, he says. Somebody starts to get sick and then it rapidly spreads to other people. It's quite a classic presentation for this sort of thing. The article goes on to say several people were quarantined and hospitalized after the bus driver, a couple passengers, and some paramedics became ill Tuesday. A suspicious passenger and mysterious pellets were suspected of poisoning the driver, but tests showed the substance was nothing more than harmless plant material. Vancouver police spokesperson Constable Anne Brennan doesn't accept Matthias's diagnosis. It's an interesting theory. We don't deal on theories. We deal with evidence, she said. We had a very real situation on our hands. But Matthias says mass hysteria does not make illness any less real, just caused by anxiety as opposed to a toxin. Matthias says mass hysteria is on the increase in a post 9/11 world filled with fear of bioterrorism and other triggers for anxiety. And the bus was actually quarantined for a time, but as that article says, there was never any, as best as I'm aware, there was never any source found. Just like the Mad Gaster of Mattoon, it seemed to come and go on its without any rhyme or reason, without any obvious cause.
There are some weird things that happen. I mean, there's been numerous accounts of people caught collecting people's hair off buses, like cutting people's hair on the bus.
Yikes.
All over the place. You can find stories all over of people having their hair snipped. I think there was one guy in Prague 15 odd years ago, and he'd got hundreds of locks of hair that he'd cut off women on buses.
Oh, man. Funny enough, I just watched the film Charlie's Angels for the first time, the 2000 one.
Yeah, that first one's okay.
Yeah, it was fun. I've never seen either of them. I just I was bored and happened to be on one of our streaming services. But
there's a lot worse films you could watch. They're both popcorn entertainment.
Yeah, that's it. But of course, Crispin Glover plays the Thin Man, and his thing is he cuts off a piece of someone's hair and he sniffs it. And boy, oh boy, Crispin Glover was creepy enough as it is. But watching him sniff someone's hair, I wanted to hide under my couch. Yes.
I can't remember which one Demi Moore's in. Is she in the first one or the second one?
The second one. That one I have yet to see. I don't think that one's streaming anywhere.
Is it Full Throttle, the second one?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I've seen a lot worse.
There you go. This podcast officially endorses the Charlie's Angels films. I got to say, even the remake with Kristen Stewart and those other gals, it wasn't terrible. I mean, I'll watch Kristen Stewart in almost anything. I think she's a lot better than she gets credit for. I think people still kind of judge her based on Twilight, but she's got a really impressive body of work ever since then. Oh, yeah, absolutely. She's one of those actors who's very, very particular in the role she plays, a bit like Daniel Radcliffe is. Yeah. Though I do think sometimes Radcliffe says, well, what's the weirdest role I've been asked to do this week? Yeah. So you've got guns nailed to my hands. Sure, why not? Fuck it. My girlfriend dies and I grow horns. I'm in. And that was like Elijah Wood playing a serial killer in Sin City. Oh, of course, yeah. And the good one. Yes, yeah. There was only ever one, Paul. There was only ever one. There certainly is. And there is in this house. Of course, R.I.P. Michael Madsen, who was in that film. Now, I wouldn't say it's one of his better performances, but he was in it. Yep. Yeah, it's a pretty solid film, the first one. I have to say, some outstanding performances from some notable people. Bruce Willis as well. Yeah, Mickey Rourke as Marv. Yeah, Marv. Yeah, Clive Owen. Of course, yeah. No, that was I haven't seen it in years, but I quite enjoyed it at the time. I think the greatest sin that film committed is that it convinced Frank Miller he should make The Spirit. The Black-Eyed Girl. I am an atheist, and I've always been skeptical of the paranormal. Aside from being the most disturbing thing I've experienced, this encounter has turned my model of reality upside down. I was on the bus with my friend Veronica around midnight. One of us mentioned that I was headed to Waterfront Station. She made a joke about how we shouldn't talk about where I was going on the bus because I would get stalked. I laughed and joked about that a little bit too, but I actually felt slightly uneasy. This is where I believe the experience began. I remember there was barely anyone on the bus. I saw 4 men chatting in front of us, but that's about it. At the time I'm writing this, a few hours after it happened, I don't remember seeing anyone else on that bus. I got off the bus and Veronica walked me to the SkyTrain station. I remember paying for my ticket and calling her as soon as I paid to jokingly complain about the fact they had raised transit fare by 5 cents. We chatted for a bit. I went downstairs to the platform for the SkyTrain to Waterfront, and a girl was sitting about 15 feet away from me. I immediately recognized her from the bus, though thinking back, I couldn't actually recall seeing her on the bus. I don't know how she got from the bus stop to the SkyTrain station without me seeing her on the way, but I didn't think to question that at this point in the story. From what I can remember, she looked about 9 to 15, somewhere thereabouts. I mean, keep in mind it was past midnight and she was alone. She was small and slim, and her hair was cut to a perfect gray bob. Like it looked more like a shiny, hard gray helmet than hair. I don't remember anything about her facial features or clothing, despite the fact that I only saw her a couple hours ago, and at one point in the story, I was staring at her intently for about 15 minutes. I do remember she had an alternative sense of style, and I think she was wearing either a leather or denim jacket. I stayed 15 feet away from the bench where she was sitting. Something about her was disconcerting and made me mildly uncomfortable. When the SkyTrain came, instead of walking through the doors of the SkyTrain compartment straight in front of her, she walked the 15 feet to get into the same compartment as me. I remember feeling a little weird about it. I didn't look at her while I was on the SkyTrain at all. This is where it gets weird. After the SkyTrain pulled into Waterfront Station, I got off it to get onto the C-bus. When the SkyTrain arrived, the C-bus was leaving in 20 seconds, so I ran to catch it. Only one other person was running to catch it with me. When I sat down, the girl with gray hair was sitting a few rows across from me, staring straight at me. I immediately recognized her. I don't know how she got to the C-bus from the SkyTrain station within 20 seconds of me, without me seeing her. As soon as I saw her, I went from relieved that I'd made it onto the C-bus to being on the verge of tears. This is the part that makes me cry when I think about it. Her eyes were completely black. Her facial expression was inhumanly blank like a robot, and she was staring straight at me. I'm not exaggerating when I say it wasn't human. It was so fucking wrong and unnatural. I have never seen or experienced anything like that in my life. All of a sudden, her face stretched into the most evil smile. It was the most terrifying thing I've ever seen. I was holding back tears at this point. How did it get from the SkyTrain to the C-bus without me seeing it? The C-bus takes 15 minutes to get to the other side. So I watched it for 15 minutes. I could not have hallucinated it being there for 15 minutes straight. It was physically impossible for it to get from the same SkyTrain as me to the C-bus without being noticed. I may have hallucinated the eyes and smile. I mean, it seems impossible to do it for 15 minutes straight, but I could not have imagined her sitting there on the C-bus for that long. I waited to get off at last, and I didn't see her on my walk home, though I was beyond terrified the entire way. The more I try to remember its physical appearance, the more hazy it gets. All I really remember is the helmet-like gray hair, pale skin, black eyes, and the blank stare morphing into the most disturbing smile I've ever seen. This was really scary to me, because if it was real, what else is real? And why was it following me? What did it want? And I gotta say, Paul, I was on board until like the scary smile, and that I started thinking, okay, maybe we're reading someone's creepypasta here.
Yeah, it's a bit cliched.
Yeah.
And then she turned and said, "Dead by dawn."
Yeah, or 7 days. Or she started soliciting donations for Wikipedia, which is equally scary and annoying. Brennan, you are one of the few people who have donated, and I regret it now all the time, because you won't stop emailing me.
Leave me alone.
Yeah, you ghouls.
Stop it.
And now, while that story may or may not be true, it is true that Waterfront Station is famously haunted. And I am going to put an image in the show notes so you can have a peek, or in the script rather, so you can have a peek, see what it looks like. It's funny, I don't put these in here most of the time because in my head you know everything, so I don't need to show you these things, even though I know that's not true. But you know, just no, of course, yeah, no, Paul knows that thing.
I have to say, my knowledge of Vancouver isn't the best. Well, that's a very pretty building. A lot of people wearing white in that picture, isn't there?
Oh, there is too. That's
strange.
That's odd.
A lot of white trousers, which is a brave move.
We do have this thing in Victoria, and I think in Vancouver, it might even be elsewhere as well, called Dinner en Blanc, where people meet for like a massive picnic dinner, and you have to wear all white and carry a picnic basket. It looks like a bunch of cultists going to have a cookout is what it looks like. But it's like kind of upper middle class people doing whatever it is those people do instead of talking about their feelings.
Yes, I do miss in the early days of the internet, there used to be a brilliant site called Look at My Fucking Red Trousers, which was someone who was just going around secretly taking pictures of men wearing red trousers every day.
Were there that many people wearing red trousers?
It's a noticeable trend of a certain demographic in the United Kingdom.
Fascinating. Well, I mean, it appears like the website has not been updated since 2012, sadly.
There's a lot of people wearing red trousers.
There are a startling number of men wearing red trousers. I did not know this was a thing.
Yes.
Okay. But anyway, so the Waterfront Station, not haunted by red trousers. But according to the site therebeghosts.com, it describes the building thusly. It says, it is one of the most haunted buildings in downtown Vancouver, built by the Canadian Pacific Railway in 1915. It was the Pacific terminus for their transcontinental passenger trains from Toronto and Montreal until it was taken over by Via Rail in 1979. Today, this heritage building is a busy hub that connects passengers between the city's various public transportation systems. It is a grand place built in an era where traveling by train had a sense of class and elegance. The west side of the building housed restaurants and a dance hall. The east contained full-time residences and lodging for travelers. Today, a restaurant occupies the east wing on the street level. On the upper floors, some rooms are taken up by business offices. The rest are either vacant or used for storage. In modern times, the Waterfront Station's night security guards have witnessed apparitions and poltergeist-like activities. One night, a guard saw the ghost of a woman in a 1920s flapper dress. She was dancing alone in a corridor on the west side of the building. He could hear the sound of 1920s music playing as she danced. When he approached her, the music stopped, and she suddenly vanished. Another security guard received the fright of his life while patrolling the northwest corner of the building. As he entered an empty room with nothing but his flashlight to light the way, he encountered the ghost of an old woman. She was glowing phosphorus white and had a mournful look on her face. As he stood stupefied, she reached out to him. Completely terrified, he ran from the room. On an upper floor on the east side of the building, another guard experienced poltergeist-like activity while on night patrol. As he walked through a room used to store a number of old desks, the desks moved together behind him without a sound. When he turned to make his way back through the room and realized he was blocked by the desks, the stunned and badly frightened security guard leapt on top of the desks and ran from the room. Apparently Jet Li was the security guard in this place.
Hey, everybody's got to work between films.
Apparently people have heard phantom footsteps walking on the tiled floors of the building. Others have seen the ghosts of three little old ladies sitting on a station bench as if waiting for a train that never arrives. And I don't know, that doesn't necessarily sound poltergeisty to me, but that's not really my field.
Well, exactly, and if it's a long-term haunting, then it's probably not a poltergeist.
This is a guy who got a word of a day. He's just trying to get it in there.
Yeah, I bet he loves the word zeitgeist as well.
Yeah, this poltergeist is in the zeitgeist for being tenacious.
Yeah, outstanding. Yeah, I'm always intrigued when somebody says, "Oh, it's a certain type of music," and he says, "Well, 1920s music was playing."
What does that sound like to you?
I mean, that all depends on what. It's a very malleable term, isn't it? What is 1920s music?
I put it to you that if you were to play a selection of music from each decade, that no one would be able to tell you which was the 20s and which wasn't. They could guess, but it would be a guess.
Yeah, especially the 20s, 30s, 40s.
One last thing I wanted to share before we move on to the next two stories, because I don't think it'll fit with the two stories we have left. There's a restaurant in North Vancouver called The Tomahawk. It's a diner. Now, I haven't been there in years, but it has not changed in the 50 years it has been around. It is fixed in time. And the food is, I would say, hit or miss. You know, it was when I was there. It was one of us had a really great meal, another had a really shit meal. But it's a Vancouver classic. And there's just this little footnote. The owners collect native art. And so in about, I think it was 1990, a number of the art objects in their collection were stolen. There was a break-in, and among the things that were stolen were a number of these quite rare items. The family has hundreds, the Chamberlains who own the restaurant, they have hundreds of pieces in this restaurant. And so after the theft, elders from the Squamish First Nation came down and held a cleansing ceremony. It was, according to the owner, to calm the spirits down in the restaurant and to let them know that those pieces that were gone would come back. Well, 20 years later, in 2010, there's 6 of the 20 items that were missing were returned. A hide-covered drum, a throwing stick, a hand-carved lamp, a shaman idol, a framed print, and an oil painting, and a hand-carved frame. And a man who was not recognized by staff was seen on surveillance cameras making 2 trips into the restaurant As predicted, 6 of those 20 items were returned.
Our next story is Ted from Cassie. First of all, my family has had experiences with hauntings from way back. You may have heard of the Amherst mystery over in Nova Scotia. My great-great-grandfather was Dr. Edwin Clay, who was the reverend in the area who was tasked with deciphering what the hell was going on. When I was 7 years old, we moved from the east side of Vancouver to Cumberland in the Comox Valley over on Vancouver Island. Prior to this, I'd had no first-hand experiences, but while my grandmother was staying with us in Vancouver, she said she'd woken up to a black cloudy form at the end of her bed. Cumberland at this time was a very isolated little village, before we had the island highway, that was prone to frequent power outages. We moved to what felt like a huge house on an acre of land, to which a city kid is massive. This town's no stranger to ghost stories. The main Cumberland Museum has been known to be haunted, and if you were to visit the Lolo Theatre, you would swear that some kind of impression from the past had been left behind. It felt like you were in someone else's house the moment we had moved into our respective rooms. My brother and my rooms were on the top floor of the house. His room faced the front, and mine faced the back, and we had a toy room that connected them. The top floor would get incredibly cold and had the sense that it was a converted attic, so I became used to sleeping with my head and body completely covered by a blanket. After a year or so in, my brother started seeing faces and figures floating above his bed at night. I only felt watched and had an incredibly cold room, although I remember hearing my jars of beads getting knocked over and my drawers being pulled out on one very particularly scary night. During this time I used to pray that I wouldn't see or hear anything. The main complaint came from my mother. As my parents were doing their home renovations and gardening, they'd put tools down, handle on another task, and then reach for the same tool only to find it had completely gone. My mum on one occasion turned the house upside down trying to find a particular trowel, only to return to the previous place where it was sitting, right in the middle of the floor. At first we were blamed, but it soon became impossible for us to be doing it at the rate that she was experiencing. During this time, my dad was sceptical about it all. My mum contacted a psychic who was also quite sceptical, and I think hadn't actually experienced a haunting before meeting us. She'd basically told us that there was a ghost in our house, and she wouldn't charge us anything. Upon finding a coal-stained spirit in the bathroom, she thought instead that she was on some kind of drug. We were moved up to the second floor away from the psychic, but we were later told all about it. This spirit had been a coal miner in Cumberland, and had always wanted a tight-knit family like ours. He'd also shouted, "I'm dead," or "I'm Ted," but we never knew what he'd actually said, but we took to calling him Ted anyway. He'd also taken a lot of pride in the house while he was alive, and when he saw my parents working on it, he called it a mess, and that he wanted to clean it up, which is why things kept getting moved and taken away. The psychic had gotten him to cross over, but I think for whatever reason we'd got quite used to him. My mother made the mistake of stating a few times she missed the spirit, and then things started to happen again. We moved to Vancouver shortly after that, where Ted, and what felt like much more, followed us. After we'd moved, it became clear that Ted was back and had brought something with him, or we'd moved into another haunted house. After a few months of getting settled, my mum walked into her Vancouver bedroom to find my sister's Raggedy Ann doll hanging from the ceiling, secured with a clothes hanger, the neck through the loop of the hanger, and to a hook on the ceiling. This was particularly disturbing as it was a 2-footish doll, limply hanging in her bedroom window. We were immediately called in to see who would own up to it, but none of us were tall enough to do that, and I don't think anybody would have thought to do so anyway. A spirit had also taken to speaking with my brother. The psychic on Vancouver Island had told us to let whatever it was know it wasn't welcome, so my mum thumped down the stairs to us in the basement and shouted this sentiment to his bedroom walls. After she left, my brother claimed he heard a voice say, "I'm still here." My brother changed bedrooms shortly after that, and he moved to one of the bedrooms right by the washing machine, which also faced another room we used for storage, and this always gave me the creeps. It was tiled with mirrors, which felt very threatening. As my interest in the paranormal sparked, I would later learn that mirrors can act as portals. My room was the basement rec room. For some reason, our parents honoured this first-come, first-served bedroom choice system, so I chose the biggest. My room was massive, with 3 white walls and a bright orange accent wall. I butted my bed against it so I wouldn't have to look at it as much. However, in doing this, a fluorescent light was right above my bed with a light switch directly under it, so you'd have to walk through a dark room to turn on the light switch. I remember that looking at the orange wall would cause my coughing fits that were very hard to stop. Even thinking about it now still makes me feel like I need to clear my throat. The only incident I ever saw with my own eyes happened when I was 12. I really enjoyed reading before bed as it was quiet, and I can remember hearing some kind of consistent tapping that broke my concentration. We had a cat, but she wasn't allowed in my room because I was very allergic to her. As I sat up to see where it was coming from, I saw my wall-mounted phone cord spinning around and tapping on the wall with every rotation. I'm not really sure what I did after that, or how I could have even gone to sleep. The next thing that happened I was thankfully excluded from seeing, but also strangely targeted. My family had started seeing me in places I wasn't. They would see me run into my bedroom or even petting the cat. One day I heard my parents yell at me from the top of the stairs, and when I came up to see why, they said I'd gone running through the kitchen and all the papers that had been tacked on the corkboard had gone flying off. When they saw my confusion and heard me tell them that I'd been downstairs studying, they let it go. A friend at my high school also said that she'd seen me in the girls' bathroom, and when she said hi, I apparently just looked at her blankly. I've done some research into doppelgangers which really frightened me. I'd learned what had happened to others, and it felt like something was closing in on me. But I'd also learned about a thing called bilocation, and I wasn't sure if I was somehow partly responsible. My mum now called in 2 psychics this time. She asked the psychics if we were somehow psychic. They shrugged and nodded. One claimed a man named Gord was helping Ted over. The rest we assumed went too. The only Gord we knew was someone who had recently passed at Cumberland United Church. The house did feel a lot emptier and lighter, and when we were more aware of saying stupid things after the psychics left. That's my experience of the paranormal, and I hope there was something of interest in there for you.
Cassie, thank you so much. There was a lot of interest in there. There was both some really fascinating stuff and I think some pretty funny stuff. You know, I like the psychic who's surprised that she can do the thing she says she can do.
Oh, it's not supposed to happen.
Shit is real.
I'm just supposed to come in here and talk shit.
I was just going to say, go to the light, Caroline.
Have you lost somebody old? Is there a Brian, a Billy, a Bob, a Bob? Yes? Bob, short for Ted.
I'm getting a connection to someone older. Maybe, have you had a parent or grandparent passed at some point in your life?
Of course, I'm 72. My dad's not Noah. What the fuck are you talking about?
That just slayed me. The psychics just, oh no.
Right, I'm off. It's all right.
Smoke bomb.
It's like the demonologist in Paranormal Activity. Yeah, I'm not going in there. There's a demon. What?
I just took this up to pick up goth chicks. I don't believe in any of this shit. If that's in there, I am out of here, Buster.
I just like the aesthetic.
I was listening to a podcast on my drive back from St. Mary's today, and this guy was saying, I only smoke as part of an aesthetic for certain outfits. I didn't even know what to do with that.
I only smoke when I'm hungry.
I mean, we've all...
Which I have heard people say.
That's. I mean, I kind of have like weird smoking habits, so I can't like be too judgmental. You know, like I will sometimes like if I'm in a really good mood, I'll want to smoke, or if I'm in a really bad mood, I'll want to smoke, or sometimes if the light hits me just a certain way, I'll want to smoke. I don't, but I don't know. Sometimes it's a certain quality of light, and I'm like, man, I want a cigarette right now. And again, I don't really smoke, but I just get that urge.
All right, James Dean. You're going to be buying a Porsche Spider later, are you?
Well, went really well for him, I think. I haven't finished that biography of him yet, but I'm just at the point where he bought it, and he seems really happy, so I assume this is the start of a long and fruitful relationship with that car.
The thing that always strikes me about that particular incident is I'm not sure how many days before he was killed, he was interviewed on set and basically gave a PSA about driving safely. But to be fair, it wasn't James Dean's fault he crashed. He crashed swerving to get out of the way of a car that had just pulled in front of him.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes. Him and his passenger were both killed as they swerved to avoid a car that had just appeared in front of them.
As I understand it, I mentioned Brent Hines from Mastodon at the top of the show. That's how he died. I believe he was on a motorcycle and someone swerved in front of him, and that was it.
Lawrence of Arabia?
Oh, of course. Yeah.
He died avoiding some children that had run into the road in front of him.
God damn. On a motorbike. Okay.
Yeah, because he's got one of the few ghost motorbikes in the UK. People started hearing it fairly quickly because it was quite a distinct bike on his way to his palatial pad, which is now a museum.
I'm still imagining James Dean giving that PSA. I, James Dean, would like you to be careful in your automobile. Look at this car. I love this car. I will be buried in this car in the unlikely event I die at any point in this life.
Has it ever been found again? Because that's one of the mysteries of it, that it vanished. And I'm not really sure if it vanished on purpose. Somebody pretended to make it vanish.
I would assume that's the case. That's my guess.
Because there's been a strange... I was watching something the other day about somebody who bought his wife a car. I can't remember if they bought her a Porsche or a Ferrari. And they went out for a meal to celebrate. When they came outside, the car had gone. And so they reported it stolen. They got the insurance money and whatever. And then 5 years later, somebody in the area was doing some renovations and they found the car in their back garden. It had been buried. But it had been wrapped up in tarp and everything. So it was near enough brand new.
What?
And I think it's in a museum somewhere now. It's a very strange story. It happened in the 70s, I think. I'm trying to think where that was. But I was watching something and they were never charged with theft of it. But yeah, it's very odd. Somebody nicked it and buried it.
They realized what premium gasoline cost. I'm like, fuck this. They saw the tank was on empty. It's half the value of the car to fill that bitch up.
Get it in there.
Speaking of movie cars and mysteries, a friend of mine used to work for a very, very wealthy family, like legit, like billionaires. And he described them as, obviously truly terrible people. Like, I think that goes without saying. Lazy and cruel and cheap and all the things you associate with extreme wealth. But one of the stories he told me that just infuriated him, because he came from a very frugal working class family. They bought some famous movie car. He doesn't know which, but he knows that they bought it at auction and they paid a lot of money for this thing. And it was the husband, of course. He wanted, it was from some movie he knew when he was a kid. So he flew down, he bought this thing and he took it on a road trip. But I guess at some point he got bored. So he drove to a nearby airport, called in their jet, because obviously they have a private jet. But the problem is now no one can remember which airport he left the car at. The rich are different.
Well, to one of my regulars once, he came in on a Monday morning and said, "Do you know where I left my car Friday?" "How would I know where you've left your car? I only saw you in the pub, absolutely off your box, as usual, on Friday night, as you were just doing your best to help the South American import trade." And he eventually found it after about 6 hours of wandering around Sheffield, and it had got 19 parking tickets on it.
Oh, that's an expensive night out.
Well, he could have afforded it then.
Oh, okay, well, that's fair. I guess, was it Robin Williams said cocaine is God's way of telling you you have too much money?
Oh, yes, yeah. He was the kind of guy that had red wine for breakfast.
I have a glass of red wine in my hand, folks. It's not breakfast, though, so it's okay.
Yeah, I'm saying 10 a.m.
Oof, okay, yeah, no, it's 6 p.m. here, I'm safe.
Yeah, take the edge off.
Exactly.
Take the edge off waking up.
Oh, yeah. You know you're living a life that's in alignment with your values when you need to take the edge off waking up.
Yeah, you'll be unsurprised to know he didn't reach 50.
Terribly surprised. And our last story of the night, after Paul and I have finished watching clips of Japanese game shows, comes from our listener, Taya. And this story actually concerns a place that I've also spent some time in. This is Easter Seal House in Vancouver. Easter Seal House is a place where people whose families are receiving outpatient care or long-term inpatient care can get heavily subsidized lodging while in Vancouver. And just, I want to make sure that it's understood when I start this. Yes, I do believe Easter Seal House is haunted, but that said, those folks do great work. And without Easter Seal House, when my cousin got sick in 2019, we would all have been in deep shit, because to stay in Vancouver long term is very, very expensive. And Easter Seal House made that much more realistic. So again, if you got some spare cash, they're always looking for help, and you would be helping a very, very worthy cause. But now, this is Taya's experience in Easter Seal House. This is my experience at the Vancouver Easter Seal House in the summer of 2011. We have two differently abled daughters. Both are trached and vented and are in wheelchairs due to the rare genetic neuropathy they have. They also both had very severe scoliosis, and this is why we were at their Easter Seal House. They were both getting their corrective surgeries back-to-back, a week apart, and we live on Vancouver Island, so it was easier for all of us to go to Vancouver at the same time and spend a few weeks at Easter Seal House so we could be near the hospital. Due to their condition, the recovery time would be longer, as they could not leave until they could be in their wheelchairs without pain. We were given 2 rooms that had an adjoining door on the ground floor. The building is an L shape, and on the inside of the L is a courtyard. Our rooms had floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out at this courtyard. The first week and a half or so, we stayed in one room, and the girls and their nurses stayed in the other. Once both girls were at the hospital, we were moved into a single room because they had to make room for another family. We have 2 younger children as well, so we would both be in Vancouver when the girls were actually in surgery, but the rest of the time we took turns coming back to Victoria to be with our other children. So most of the time that I was there, I was alone. I did not feel anything when we were in the first room, but we were under a lot of stress worrying about the surgeries and so on. Once we moved to the second room, it felt like a large man was standing right outside the windows watching me. The windows were right at the courtyard level, so we kept them closed all the time. But I swore if I pulled the curtain aside, he would have been standing right there. But I knew he wasn't, as I would have seen him through the curtains. Also, this was August in Vancouver, and although it has a reputation for always being rainy and overcast, August is usually very hot and sunny. Despite this, that room was always very dark, even when the sun was shining against the windows. The room had 2 single beds, and I would always sleep in the one farther away from the windows. I was working remotely, and when I was working on my laptop, I would feel like someone was standing right behind me, staring at my screen over my shoulder. When I was cooking in the tiny kitchenette, it felt like someone was right next to me, a space a corporeal person would not have fit in. I refused to go into the courtyard as it felt like the space was repelling me. It looked like how I expected the garden in the book The Secret Garden would have looked like, pretty enough, but dark and heavy. The whole building had an uneasy feeling, and was dark. It shouldn't have been, as it was brightly painted, but it always felt like it was nighttime. A friend who lived in Vancouver came over to keep me company, and as soon as he came into the room, he said, "Wow, it is dark and heavy in here. Want to go for a walk and get some fresh air?" We decided to go check out an older neighborhood nearby. We went down the alley next to the Easter Seal House building, and once we got to the end of the alley and stepped onto the crossroad, it felt like we had just exited a dark tunnel, and I realized I had been holding my breath. The alley was just as dark feeling as the building. I was getting frustrated about not being able to rest while there, so when I got back to the room, I had a talk with whomever this man was, explaining that I had a lot going on with my kids, and I was super worried for them, and that when I was back at the Easter Seal House, I wanted to be able to rest and recharge for them. I said I was sorry for whatever happened that made him so angry, but I did not cause it, and I would appreciate it if he could take it down a few notches so I could rest. It did get a little better. The building still felt dark, but whoever was watching me was no longer there, or at least was not letting me know he was there. A few days later, the BC Children's Hospital needed the room in ICU for a tragic emergency, so, since the girls were well enough, we were sent back to our local hospital on the island. I was so freaking happy to be leaving that room. And Paul, I've put an image in the show notes. This is a picture taken during my time at Easter Seal House, just to give you a sense of what the space looks like.
That's a creepy carpet.
It is a creepy carpet. And Taya sent this in a few years back. Taya, thank you so much. I've been, again, holding on to it for a Vancouver episode, and thankfully I was able to share it now. But if I'm not mistaken, my cousin's partner, she spent a lot of time in Easter Seal House. She, I believe, also mentioned a large man or a tall man. She's very psychically sensitive. And as I recall, she had mentioned this a number of times. Certainly, I felt presence, and I know there would be episodes from 2019 where I described my experiences in Easter Seal House. I don't remember which episodes they were, but I know the courtyard. My first room was upstairs overlooking the courtyard, and I was my eye was just drawn down there. I think it was a spring when I was there, so I don't remember. It seemed very dark, and I don't know if it was unusually dark for the time, because I can't remember what time of year. But yeah, it's a very, as I say, a very haunted place, and it feels, as Taya says, very, very dark. And I even found actually the neighborhood behind it, I found quite dark as well. You know, my cousin's partner and I would go for walks, and it just felt very, very heavy. Speaking of heavy, actually, I found another space that folks sort of described as unsettling. Right at the far end of East Van, I think it's right about where it starts becoming Burnaby. I'm not 100% on that, but there's a place called the PNE, the Pacific National Exhibition. And it's home to a lot of different things. There's the Coliseum there, I think Pacific Coliseum, which is where Nick and I saw the Killers a number of years ago. Number of concerts there. I think that's actually where we saw System of a Down way back in the day. But there's that. There's a place called Playland, which is like an amusement park. But what's interesting is when the lights are off, when things are quiet, it has a much more unsettling feeling, as these people online said. So when asked what for places in Vancouver they find unsettling, they said the park space on the PNE grounds. I've worked in the downtown east side for several years, and what makes the PNE park space more unsettling for me is that I can't come up with solid, logical reasons for why the place feels unsettling. While I can express clearly what makes the downtown east side unsettling, and of course it's a very poor, very stricken area of the city. This person says, it is super unsettling there for some reason. The whole place gives off a sense of wrongness and the strange anxiety-inducing feelings of a liminal space. Back in my early 20s, a friend and I decided to take an urban camping trip in the park during the summer when I desperately wanted to camp and get out of my crazily overheated apartment, but didn't have time off work to go camping properly. We set up a tent down along the water and the trees off a pathway for 2 nights. That's fucking crazy is what that is. That is, Jesus Christ. Forget about ghosts. Christ.
Yeah, I bet that's a right laugh.
Oof. Yeah, a lot of weird stuff happened. I bet it did.
I'm a bear.
Is a bear smoking a crack pipe?
Fucking hell.
So this person goes on to say, we heard large cracking branches in the woods around our tent, yet when we checked, nobody was there. Our dogs, both large pity mixes who've calmly stared down coyotes on multiple occasions, 2 bears and once a mountain lion, were acting terrified. There was a pervasive feeling of wrongness to the place. Then the second night, I can't believe they stayed for a second night, we heard all kinds of weird shit despite being mostly sober. There was an old woman talking from just behind the tent at 3 a.m. Again, there was nobody there, and that side of the tent was up against the water. The sounds of children, which almost sounded like singing, and the weirdest one, which sounded like a woman whispering right beside my ear from inside the tent. We had planned to do this for 3 nights, but after the weirdness of the second, we packed up early and went home. Years later, I lived in the area and would take my dogs for walks there in the evening. They would always insist on being out of there before nightfall, dragging me to the exit. During this time, I saw some weird things as well, like tall humanoid shadows just off the pathway in the tree line, which my dog would shrink away from. I swear to God, that place is haunted or something. And I've dropped a photo here in this script to show Paul. This is, again, another one I took when I was in my car because I wasn't getting out of it. But you can kind of feel the liminality of the area. I was saying to Paul off air that, you know, most of my memories from Vancouver they almost feel like someone else's life. Yeah. Because a lot of the folks I spent time there with, I'm not in touch with anymore. But one of the things that still holds true is that I was besotted by weird parts of Vancouver, and invariably those places have turned out to be haunted, and this place is another one of them. I found myself driving behind the PNE a number of times because I was just fascinated by it. And again, as I've learned over the years, that means something is desperately wrong.
Well, at least you're consistent.
So that has been our Vancouver show. Again, we hope you folks have enjoyed it. There was so much other just little bits and bobs of stuff that we didn't have time for, that didn't fit in. But again, I'll probably do some patron bonus stuff for folks on Vancouver, because again, I love the city and I think it's got a lot of interesting stuff going on, especially under the hood. Again, places like the downtown east side and elsewhere as well. Like the west sort of part of Vancouver, there's just as much going on there. It just seems to be maybe not talked about as much. And then of course places like Kitsilano and Burnaby and all those boroughs, which are, again, I have no doubt there is just as much weirdness there as there is anywhere else. Although I do want to shout out the Patricia Hotel, which I put some photos of in our Facebook group, because it was my favorite place to stay in Vancouver for a long time. It has since been converted into low-income housing. This is not a surprise. It is in, again, the downtown east side. I used to love it there. It was cheap. It had a ton of character. It felt like you were walking back in the 70s, as again, as you no doubt noticed from the photos, and always felt haunted as shit. I never heard any actual stories from anyone, but then it was also not the kind of place where people talked amongst themselves very much. So yes, if you have a Vancouver story, send it to us. We'll share it on either a Talk Spooky episode or an upcoming Listener Stories episode. Send it to ghoststoryguys@gmail.com. We're on Facebook as Ghost Story Guys Finally Made a Group. We're on Reddit as r/Ghost Story Guys Podcast. And we are on Instagram as the Ghost Story Guys. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. Hey there, listeners. Before you reach for that skip 15 seconds ahead button, I promise you this isn't an ad. We wanted to take a minute to talk to you about mental health. On this show, I've always tried to be as honest and open as possible about my struggles with depression and anxiety, because even though we've come a long way towards acknowledging the very real damage these things can do, there is still way too much lingering stigma about reaching out for help. And when you start to feel like there's no help, it's easy to start feeling like there's no hope. But Paul has joined me today to remind you there is always hope and there's always help.
We're not going to try and talk you out of self-harming right now, because we know that's not how it works. Instead, what we wanted to do was tell you something now and hope that should things get bad, you'll remember it and make a phone call or send a text message before you make any permanent decisions. As someone who knows all too well just how important mental health can be, it's never too late to reach out.
In Canada, the number to call is 133-456-4566. In the USA, the new number to call is 988. That's 988.
In the UK, the number to call is 116123, or text SHOUT, that's SHOUT, to 85258. In Australia, the number to call is 131114.
However bad shit seems, it will pass. And no matter what your brain might be telling you at any given moment, and believe me when I say I know this intimately, there are people who love you and people who care deeply about how you treat yourself. Should a time come when you find yourself despairing, please know that we've both been where you are, and there is a way back to the world. Take care. Welcome back. The Ghost Story Guys are Luke Greensmith, who helps us find our stories, Sarah Kent, who helps manage our Reddit community, Tanya Downing, who helps manage our Facebook community.
Our paranormal conductor is Mr. Brennan Storr.
And of course, my friend and co-host is the one, the only, the inimitable Paul Bestel, the paranormal Johnny Carson himself, host of Mysteries and Monsters. Paul, what's coming up on M&M?
I am delighted to welcome the director of the Centre for Fortean Zoology, Jonathan Downes, to the show, and we dive into their work, some of his very amusing and interesting life stories, to say the least, as he used to be, well, he still does work in the music biz. He used to do a lot of work with Steve Harley, famous for the Come Up and See Me, Make Me Smile song. And so it's a very interesting and a little psychedelic conversation, really.
Very cool. And where can everyone find you online?
You can find Mysteries and Monsters across most social media sites and all podcast sites.
Fabulous. I'm Largely the Truth on Threads, Instagram, Blue Sky, and Letterboxd. And my horror fiction show, Fear Daily, co-created with Brandon Scheck Snyder. You can find that everywhere. Find podcasts live. Help us get to download number 2 million. As we said at the top, we couldn't do this without our patrons. You guys are the lifeblood of the Ghost Story Guys. Apple Podcasts and YouTube subscribers, you are just the same. Again, we are deeply, deeply grateful for every single one of you. And if you would like to not only support what we do, but get access to early ad-free release, bonus shows, including extra conversations between myself and Paul, sometimes stuff that's cut from the main shows. I just dropped about 23 minutes worth of cut material from the last 2 shows. Sometimes they're specifically just specific patron conversations. You also get bonus spooky shows like Haunted Airbnbs, The Haunting of Fort McMurray. Then you've got our monthly live stream and our Ghost Force shoutouts. You can get all of that by clicking the link in the show notes or by heading to patreon.com/ghoststoryguys. Again, that's patreon.com/ghoststoryguys, or by becoming a friend of the cabin on Apple Podcasts or YouTube. Paul, you were recently a guest host on Paul Sinclair's Truth Proof. And of course, folks can find that linked in our blog at ghoststoryguys.com. Do you have any other guest spots coming up?
Yes, I will be appearing on a live streamed paranormal conference that will be held in the beginning of January. And I will have more details of that when they've been released, where I believe I shall be talking around 2:00 in the afternoon.
Fucking A. All right. Well, we'll put up links to that when more information becomes available. For now, Strange Days is coming, is it not?
Yes. Now I've survived seeing The Evil Dead and wasn't possessed or dead by dawn. I am now moving on to entering the sacred area of Glastonbury and its surroundings. And yes, that will be next weekend.
Holy shit, that came up fast.
Certainly did.
Well, folks, if there are tickets left yet, you can click the link in the show notes to find out. Again, that's they've been in the show notes for pretty much the last 6 months, I think. There have been links to the Strange Days Festival's website where you can purchase tickets. You can go see Paul and a number of other fantastic speakers, including the charismatic Brian Blessed.
Absolutely.
And again, you'll find all of that linked either in the show notes or on our blog at ghoststoryguys.com. As for me, as I mentioned previously, I recently covered for Sarge, or stepped in for Sarge rather, on an episode of Cryptid Cocktail. And I was recently a guest on a roundtable for Where Did the Road Go, talking about dreams. That's, I think, going to be out for patrons next week and probably out for the general public in about 6 weeks. So keep an eye out for that. And again, you'll find all of our guest spots linked at the Ghost Story Guys site, ghoststoryguys.com. Speaking of ghoststoryguys.com, you can get all kinds of goodies. If you go there, you get t-shirts, stickers, mugs, all kinds of Ghost Story Guys goodness in many different designs, including my favorite, the inimitable Paul Bestel, where Paul looks like Mighty Thor. And again, you can get that at ghoststoryguys.com. Our theme song, Radio, Into the Darkness We Go, is composed and performed by Peter Kursov of Pizzanta Music. Find more from him by searching for Pizzanta Music wherever you get your tunes, or by heading to our website, nightharvestrecordings.com. Night Harvest Recordings is, of course, the Ghost Story Guys house label. And I think that's going to do it.
We'll be back next week, but until then,
into the darkness we go. All right. Paul, you want to get us started?
No.
Oh, all right then. Thanks for joining us, folks. Our musical guest on this episode is... Here.
Chuck, chuck.
Chuck, chuck.
Chuck.
Anyway, I don't know what I'm doing. Just making noises.
Meow.
I'm not falling for that again. Nice try, Bigfoot.
Just bear with me. As you were finishing there, The cat that normally scratches on the door pushed the door open, stared at me like she wanted to murder me, and fucked off.
Well, before we get to our stories of haunted Vancouver, we have to thank our patrons. And I should probably put them in the doc.
I thought this was some kind of mind experiment.
It's like Ghostbusters, I'm testing your psychic powers.
Is it 2 wavy lines?
It is 2 wavy lines. We should get dinner.
Excellent, let's do it. Cheese all round. He's a big fan.
I don't know what the fuck. I've never heard that dog out there before.
Is he cleaning windows?
Right? And you know he's about this big.
Yeah.
He's going to be the size of a Birkin bag.
Like we're trying to do some MK Ultra on me there. I'm just going, da-doo, da-doo, da-doo. And then I go full
Must
screen,
kill
my face.
the queen.
Da-doo, da-doo.
Must kill the queen. Can't even bury anyone alive anymore because of woke.
World's gone mad. It's a serial killer meant to do.
All right, so creepy Japan Instagram, Japanese TV show, open the box. Oh, Japan, you never disappoint me when it comes to strange television. The look on his face.
I like the slow-mo.
Oh, yeah, the face. Well, the guy in the blue shirt, the face. He just looks like he's seen into eternity. Transparent wall underwater.
Oh, that's a classic, that.
Oh, face first. Ouch.
They also do this thing called no reaction judo.
Okay. So I'm watching one of the no reaction judo. She's woman in a bikini is doing some kind of weird back bend and reefing on someone's neck. Good God, she looks like breaking this guy in half. What? I don't even understand the point of this. This just looks like it hurts.
You're not supposed to make any noise.
Oh, okay.
And you win a prize if you keep quiet whilst you're being tortured.
What the fuck? I'm watching one of the vomiting teddy bear. Oh God.
That's brilliant.
Oh God, it just keeps throwing up on him.
That's brilliant.
What the fuck?
I've seen that one.
What is wrong with you?
It's so funny.
You're so weird.